Good afternoon. Welcome to the Pledge Fellowship Informational Session. My name is Aaron Taylor, and I serve as Executive Director of the Access Lex Center for Legal Education Excellence, and I'm joined by Raymond Pierce, President and CEO of the Southern Education Foundation. Access Lex and SCF, two organizations committed to promoting educational equity, have partnered to launch the Pledge Fellowship, which is an exciting effort to support law school professionals seeking to assess the impact of their student success efforts and seeking to become DEI champions within their institutions and beyond. Raymond and I are joined by Mary Beth Gassman and Alice Ginsberg, who are leading the fellowship curriculum bill and will share information about the fellowship experience. In this webinar, we will begin with an overview of the Pledge Fellowship, then discuss the curriculum, follow that up with a description of the application process, and then end with attendee questions. We're very interested in your questions, so please feel free to place them in the comment box on your screen, and we will respond to them during the Q&A period at the end. And now I'll turn it over to Raymond to talk about the fellowship in more detail.
Thank you, Aaron. The Professionals in Legal Education Developing Greater Equity, otherwise known as Pledge Fellowship, is an 18-month professional development program and problem-based research project. The fellowship targets experienced law school administrators, faculty members, and other similarly situated and experienced professionals who are seeking to assess the impact of their student success efforts and become diversity, equity, and inclusion champions within their institutions and beyond. The goal of the Pledge is to help cultivate a culture of using data and empirical assessment methods in order to foster diverse, equitable, and inclusive learning environments within law schools. Fellows will be exposed to topics relevant to this goal while undertaking a problem-based research project of their own called a capstone, which I explain in greater detail later. The first Pledge cohort will consist of 3 fellowship teams made up of 2 fellows each. We're seeking experienced team members, including at least one with policy setting authority within their law school. We're also seeking teams that have access to data that can be used to conduct the capstone project. The fellowship will last 18 months, starting in June 2022 and ending in November 2023. Over that period, there will be a total of 12 fellowship meetings, 5 in person, and the other 7 virtual. Our hope is that each of the fellowship teams can host one of the in-person meetings at their institution. The fellowship will culminate with each team completing a capstone. The capstone is a problem or intervention-based research project that will be the focus of each team's fellowship activities. Examples of a capstone project could be a team of admission officers assessing the impact of a conditional admissions program on the success of students who complete it, or it could be a team of bar success faculty members assessing the impact of a specific bar exam intervention on students' chances of passing the bar the first time. Proposed capstones should be specific in scope, able to be completed in roughly 15 months, and directly relevant to the work that the fellows do every day. On the slide are the 3 fellowship strands: admission and access, which focuses on fostering successful law school enrollment of underrepresented people; academic performance, focused on fostering academic success of underrepresented students; and bar exam performance, which focuses on fostering bar exam passage among underrepresented graduates. Our goal will be to select one team for each of the strands, but that will be driven by the composition and quality of the applicant pool. Fellows will receive access to an array of resources aimed at facilitating the completion of the capstone and professional development components of the program. The resources include a capstone budget of up to $25,000, a stipend of $5,000 per fellow, access to capstone design expertise and DEI professional development coaching. Travel expenses for the in-person meeting will also be covered. So now, I will turn it over to Mary Beth and Alice to discuss the fellowship curriculum. Mary Beth, Alice?
All right, thank you so much. First of all, it's great to be here with everyone. And Alice and I are going to just give you a quick overview of some of the things that we, along with our team, who I will also introduce you to, will be concentrating on as part of the curriculum. So some of the things that fellows will learn about are listed here on the slide. We are going to delve deeply into historic and contemporary DEI issues across the academy, especially within the law school environment. And one of the things that I wanted to point out is that many of you are in practitioner positions, and we would like to be able to capitalize on that and really delve deep into the research along the issues that you deal with on a daily basis. So we'll be talking about many of the things that are hot button issues across the country, but not just looking at them in terms of what's going on today, but how these issues have become such hot button issues, the history of them, the theory behind them, and really also capitalizing on what you would bring to these discussions as well. So what I'd like to do is have Alice talk about, go a little bit more in depth into the three strands and what you will be learning and grappling with, and then she'll hand it back over to me. Thank you, Alice. I for some reason do not see Alice. I don't know if there was a...
Do you see me now?
Okay, great. Thank you.
We hear you.
Yes. I'm so sorry about that. So as you've heard, one of the features of this fellowship program is we're going to be looking at issues of DEI across the entire law school pipeline, from access and admission all the way through the bar exam performance. And this is important because gaps in these pipelines prevent people of color, women, and other underrepresented groups from successfully transitioning through them. And I just wanted to throw out a few stats here. 70% of law school degrees are presented to white students. Only 34% of lawyers are women, and 49% of Black law school applicants do not receive a single offer of admission. So we've got our work cut out for us. When we look at issues of admission and access, you can see it goes all the way back to unequal experiences in primary and secondary school preparation, but it's also complicated by issues when students get to college, lacking diverse mentors and role models in the legal profession, and being subject to racial stereotypes and implicit bias. I work with a nonprofit organization that supports first-generation low-income college students, and one of the things they say all the time is they feel like people think they're just there because of affirmative action. And this is very dangerous because it has a huge impact on their self-esteem, leading to issues of imposter syndrome and stereotypes threat that follow them throughout the pipeline. So you'll see that that's something that we're going to be talking about in each of these different stages. Once students get to college, get to law school, they find that a lot of the things that impact students also impact professors. So while students of color are subject to a chilly climate, so are professors of color, and issues such as lack of culturally relevant pedagogy or professors not having the proficiency to facilitate racially charged conversations all impact the experience that students have in law school. And I think it's worth saying here that even for professors of color, professors tend to teach in the way that they were taught. And this can have a really negative impact on students of color who often do not feel included in the curriculum. And then, of course, we'll look at bar exam performance. And, as everybody knows, the cost of these exams can, stop a student before they even get out the gate. There's also a lot of research to suggest that these exams are culturally biased or do not measure all of the things that are involved in being a good lawyer. I think we would all agree, though, that the exam is not going away. So we need to do research and come up with innovative ways to support and prepare underrepresented students to pass the bar exam. So, as you know, this program, you will be doing a capstone project, as Aaron and Raymond have said. And it's going to be problem-based or what we call practitioner inquiry. And what makes practitioner inquiry different from other kinds of research is it can be qualitative, it can be quantitative, it can be a mixture of both. It's not about the methods as much as the question you pick being about something that is purposeful to your own experience or your own practice. So maybe the term action research is something that you've heard, more often. With action research, it's the idea that it's not just data collection, it's data empowerment. So what are you going to do with this data? How are you going to turn this data into actionable recommendations and to eventually drive the purpose of this fellowship, systemic change and institutional transformation? So we will be working with you across the entire 18 months of the program to develop a research question, to develop the different kinds of protocols you want to do for interviews and observations, to reflect on your progress and put together a timeline that's realistic, because we know you're all working full time while you're doing this, and coding and analyzing data, which is something that you'll be doing over and over again, coming back to the same data with a fresh set of perspectives and a fresh set of questions. And we will also be working with you, hopefully, to publish and disseminate your research to the broadest possible audience. So in addition to the collaborative sessions that we have planned that will probably take place somewhat at your institutions, you will also have access to monthly coaching and one-on-one sessions with myself and other people from the Proctor team. So I'll hand it back to Mary Beth, but this is basically the kind of support that you will receive.
Great. Yes, thank you, Alice. And as we've heard a couple of people say, we will have 12 different sessions across the fellowship, and some of those are going to be in person, some of those are going to be virtual. They will all be highly interactive. We're really excited about the one-on-one coaching, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about the overall curriculum team in a minute. But the entire curriculum team will be working with you, doing one-on-one coaching and providing you with lots and lots of feedback on your research projects, and to ensure that your capstone projects are meaningful and that they can also be largely disseminated to wide audiences. We really want to make sure to do that for you. And then I think one of the things that will really help people is that we are going to be doing these monthly check-ins, as Alice said, to just make sure that you are making progress and that any and all of your questions are asked along the way, because this is a big endeavor. And then I just wanted to tell you a little bit more about the curriculum team. Alice and myself will be involved in the team, and then we also have Andres Castro-Samayoa, who is a professor at Boston College, and with expertise in DEI issues and equity issues. Leah Hollis, who's a professor at Morgan State University, who has also expertise in DEI issues and issues related to women. Raquel Munoz, who is a professor at Boston College. She also has a JD and has expertise along the lines of students and faculty issues within law schools. And Kent Lawless, who's with the Law School Admissions Council, who has a considerable amount of expertise related to bar exam and law school admissions and law, teaching in law schools. So we have what we think is a really wonderful team to work with you, with diverse experience in so many ways, and we're really eager to work with you and meet you. And I am going to hand it back over to Aaron.
Thank you so much, Mary Beth. So there are 5 components of the Pledge Fellowship application. So let's get into those and describe each of those. First is the application form, which requires general information about the people comprising the fellowship team. Next is the statement of interest and contributions to diversity. Now, this statement asks the team to explain its interest in the fellowship and the qualifications of the team members to take part in the fellowship. The statement also asks the team to describe its track record and activities related to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And this could be professional, it could be personal, but it has to be substantive, either way. The third component is the capstone proposal, which asks the team to describe the nature of the program or intervention being studied, as well as the data sources that will be used to undertake the capstone. And we're very interested in proposals where the data is easily available or readily available. Next, there's the letter of recommendation and support for each team member from a dean or other relevant administrator. Now, the fellowship is 18 months. It's going to require time and effort and investment, and it will require the support from colleagues within their institutions. The fellows will have to have that support, and particularly as it pertains to colleagues to whom they report. So this letter should speak to the author's perceptions of the fellow's qualifications, as well as the potential benefits of the fellowship to the fellows themselves, as well as to the institution. And that latter part is important because, again, this will require time investment and support, and that's much easily received and maintained when there's a benefit to the institution for you to undertake this fellowship. And then lastly, brief CVs will be required for each of the team members. And by brief, we're talking roughly 3 pages or so. Now, on this slide are important dates. So the application is currently live and it has a deadline of March 27th, so roughly a little over 6 weeks from now. Fellowship teams will be announced on May 13th, and the fellowship itself will officially begin with an in-person meeting in Atlanta, Georgia at the Southern Education Foundation headquarters. And this will be June 22nd through June 24th. The entire fellowship cycle will end in early November of 2023 at the Access Lex Legal Education Research Symposium. So that's the end of our prepared remarks, and now we'll have some time for Q&A and also any other thoughts people might have. So if you have any questions, please feel free to put them into the chat box and we'll get to those. One question that has come through is whether or not teams can have a non-law school person on the fellowship team. So in other words, could there be a law school person as well as a non-law school person? And the short answer to that question is yes. There's no requirement that both team members come from law schools. Obviously, the work that's undertaken must focus on law schools and law students. But if there's another member who works, say, in another department within a larger university, particularly if that person has a relevant skill set to the capstone project, then absolutely that is possible, and we would be happy to receive those types of proposals. All right, trying to see if I see any other questions. Oh, a few of them just come in. So one question is, do you have to apply as a team, or can you apply solo and be matched with another person? And so you definitely have to apply as a team because we are fostering a cohort type of approach to this, both within the fellowship team itself and then also across the fellowship overall. And we also would like to have 2 people per team who are both invested in the work that is being done, largely because the work is relevant to what they do every day. Another question about building your own team, or could you be matched? That's the answer to that one. All right, I work for an entirely online California accredited school that serves underserved populations. Would this institution be eligible? At the current time, the Pledge Fellowship is only open to law school professionals at ABA-approved law schools. Who knows what the future holds? We may open it up at some point, but at the time, it's only open to ABA-approved law schools. All right. See if there are any other questions. Any curriculum questions? All right, how many persons are allowed per team? There are 2-person teams. Should the team members be from the same institution? Whether they should depends on the proposal itself, but they don't have to be. Another question about, can the project cross silos? Absolutely they can. And I would like to bring Mary Beth and Alice into this question, because we have a lot of questions about the teams, the composition of the teams, and whether they have to be in the same law school or whether they can be across. Can we talk about the potential benefits of a cross-departmental team, just for the edification of folks who have that curiosity?
Sure, I'm happy to make a comment about that. I do think that there would be a lot that could be learned from each other from that kind of experience working together. And I think there are benefits to kind of going deep within your own institution, and then there are benefits from working with someone else, right? Because you could really, I think, learn from each other. And then the other thing is that sometimes there's more power when you have 2 institutions trying to implement a new policy or procedure, right? You can, there's a little bit more power in that, especially if you can develop your capstone in a way that can really have an impact on practice. So that would be my response to that. Alice, I'm not sure if you wanted to also.
Yeah. I was going to say, at the same time that there might be more power in having 2 institutions, it's often very lonely work to be doing this by yourself at your own institution. So having an ally at your own institution can also be very helpful. So you could really look at it either way.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, thank you all for that. We have a question asking, how specific does the capstone proposal need to be, and can there be a general proposal made that will be narrowed down through the work of the fellowship? So the answer to your last question is probably the easier question. Can a general proposal be made that is narrowed down? The short answer is yes, right? However, it can't be so general to where we don't know what you're trying to do. And so because this is a problem-based project or an action-based project, there has to be an actual problem or program or intervention that you're trying to study, right? And then you also have to have some conception of what you want to know about that program or intervention. So it's according to how we define general. It doesn't have to be so specific where you have every aspect of it determined, but it has to be specific enough for us to know what it is that you're seeking to study. And this is something else that I'll throw to the curriculum team in talking about the types of resources that the fellows will have in drilling down the proposals that they make at the application stage.
Thank you, Erin. Go on. Alice, would you like to go first? That's fine.
No, I was just going to say, one of the first things that we will do at the in-person meeting in June is spend some time going over your research questions and thinking about what your sub-questions are and whether there's other ways that you could pose the question. So we're going to be really helping you narrow down those questions, but Erin is absolutely correct. You have to come in with, some intervention or something that within your own scope of practice that you want to look at.
Yeah, and I would add to that I think we in evaluating the proposals that you put together, of course, we want to make sure that what you present is doable and feasible. But I wouldn't be fixated on almost completing, having a near perfect idea, because I do think that one of the things that our curriculum team is going to do is we're going to engage you, and we're going to push you, and we're going to get you to try to think about things a little differently, and get you to kind of go deep into a topic. Sometimes what'll happen is when we're working with people, they'll think that they're going to approach a topic quantitatively, but they may find out that a qualitative approach is a much better approach for that research question. So, you want to be specific, but I tell people who are doing research this all the time, is that you want to leave yourself a little room too, and be open. And we're definitely not looking for something where you've literally put together every single possible thing related to your topic. I think that we just want to be able to assess whether this is a feasible project and whether it's important as well to the, changing the current kind of situation within law schools.
Yeah, and I would just add to that in terms of feasibility. A lot of times you think you're going to have access to information or to an observation or a group, and that falls through. So a lot of what we're going to do is help you have multiple data to triangulate, so you're not, so fixated on just one set of data.
All right, and we have another question that speaks somewhat to that. You mentioned you are interested in proposals where the data is readily accessible. Can you clarify that a bit more? Generally what we mean, and this really gets to the feasibility of this, because this is an 18-month fellowship, and we're aiming for proposals or capstones to be able to be completed within 15 months. Because when the thing ends, we want you to have done the research and also produced a report that you can submit, but also potentially have published somewhere else. So accessibility of data is very important. And so what we mean by this is you have a population of students from whom you can get data from. So you have the permissions to do so, or at least you have a plan for getting the permissions. You know who the students are, even if you don't know them specifically, because they may not be students yet. You know exactly the types of population. So it might be the incoming class of 2022 or the graduates of 2023, something along those lines. There has to be a level of specificity, but also access to the data that you'll use to complete the capstone project. And the curriculum team, of course, will assist you through the process of identifying good data beyond what you pitched in your application and your proposal. But we don't want a situation where you have an idea and it's a great idea, but you have no idea or not much idea of where you're going to even go to carry out the research that you have in mind. Now, part of this is the importance of the capstone that you complete being relevant to your work. Because we don't want to create a whole new set of requirements and obligations and things of that nature for you in the context of your full-time work. But if you're an admission person and you're already running a conditional admission program, that might be a great thing to study in the context of your capstone. Or if you're an academic support person and you're already doing interventions with certain students who maybe have academic difficulty, or all students, that could be something that's good for you to study. And so it's already something you do anyway. And now you have access to resources to do a real deep assessment and evaluation, whether it's quantitative or qualitative, of this thing that you're already doing. Now, that's not a hard and fast requirement. However, we just think from a feasibility standpoint, it's much better if this is a project that you're already working on that you now want to build on and study more deeply. All right, let's see any other questions. Would multiple teams from the same institution be permitted? And I want to bring Raymond in to answer this one. Raymond, how do we feel about multiple teams from the same institution?
Well, I think that's pretty good. I think people can compete. I don't think we'll have a problem with multiple teams from the same institution. Let's just make sure that they're distinct, that there's no overlap. Of course, we're trying to get the largest quality pool of applicants we possibly can. But we don't have a problem with, multiple teams from one institution. All
right. Let's see. We have another question. Is there a way to connect with another person who is interested in a similar topical area if I am solo currently? That's a good question, and I'm not sure that's something we've considered or deliberated much about on our end. I would say the general concept we're thinking about are two team members who are invested in, let's just say, the success of a particular program or a particular intervention or even a particular set of students. And so it may be possible to connect with someone. I don't know if we could facilitate that, but it might be good for you to ask around, look around, think about other law schools who may be similarly situated, think about colleagues in other departments if you're part of a larger institution. But it really has to be, I can't emphasize it enough, it really has to be mutual investment in not only the success of the fellowship experience, but also in the underlying program or intervention that'll be studied. All right, we have one question: where does the writing get published? I'll just say quickly, it's up to you. You get it published wherever you can get it published, but I'll kick it over to the curriculum team because I have a feeling they have a much better answer than I do.
Sure. So, Aaron, I think just to answer that question, and Alice, feel free to chime in as well. One of the things I will say is across our entire curriculum team, people are very, very well published in a whole variety of areas, from peer-reviewed work to reports to op-eds to policy briefs to books. And so we all have experience publishing in a whole variety of venues. And the other thing that we have is we have really good connections with journal editors, book publishers, organizational newsletters, right? There are all kinds of things. Maybe editors at different media, periodicals that deal with higher education or law schools, a variety of things like that. So what we would do is, depending on what you're doing, we'd advise you on how you might want to publish something. So, for example, your work may end up being published. The best way to disseminate it is through a research report, or it could be maybe kind of a more practitioner-oriented report with lots of recommendations that are very hands-on. Or you might do something that is a little bit more theoretical but has a practical component, and that might be a peer-reviewed article. Or who knows? I mean, you could end up in a situation where, because we're going to have you all together, also working together, where you might say, well, what if we did an edited volume that really, brings these ideas together? And that's something that both Alice and I and our team all have experience with. Maybe you could do that and really focus it on key issues across this larger topical area and making a difference. So I think the possibilities are wide open in terms of where you could publish. And Alice, I don't know if you want to comment as well.
Yeah. So I don't want to embarrass Mary Beth, but she's published over 25 books. So she knows a lot about edited collections. I did want to say, it was on the slide, but I didn't emphasize it. One of the things we are going to help you do is find your voice, your writing voice, because you can write the same research up for many different purposes. And you do have to know who your audience is. So if you're doing a peer-reviewed article, that's going to be a very different voice than if you're doing a policy report or a commentary. So we will be working with you to rewrite things for different purposes and publications. It won't just be one final publication.
Okay. And if I might add, Alice, the Southern Education Foundation would definitely be interested in including these publications in our social media and on our website.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was actually going to comment that because Raymond, have used a variety of SEF's publications, that SEF would also be just a wonderful venue for publication if you're open to that. I think that's terrific.
We would be.
Yeah.
And at Access Lex, we have our resource collection, or ARC for short, and then also our SSRN research paper series. So as Mary Beth said, the possibilities are endless. Produce quality work. People will want to read it and learn from it. So there are a few questions about whether or not the webinar will be recorded and made available later. And the answer to that question is yes. It'll be posted on the Pledge website, and also sent around via our email list and sent around to people who registered for this webinar. So with that, I'm going to ask Raymond to close us out.
Okay. Well, thank you, Aaron, and Mary Beth, Alice, and everyone else who has joined us here. This has, I think, been a very good conversation. We are excited about the interest in this project. I want to thank my friend Aaron Taylor and our friends at Access Lex for actually inviting the Southern Education Foundation to partner with on this. this goes to the core of our over 154-year mission, and that is providing opportunity and equity in education. And that's not just K-12, and it's not just post-secondary, it's also legal education. So having been a former dean of a law school myself, I also have a specific interest in this area. I think we have assembled an outstanding team here of persons on this project. I think this is a great opportunity for administrators and staff in legal education to expand not only their understanding of how their work impacts not only the legal profession as a whole, but particularly in terms of inclusion and diversity in this profession, which continues to be a challenge for the profession. So again, I want to thank everybody for joining us. I think this has been a great session, and we really appreciate the questions, and we look forward to receiving applications. Thank you.
Thank you all.